Welcome back, and we're speaking with Dr. John Demartini. John, before the break, you were talking about your journey at the age of 7. You were told that you would not amount to anything. What was it specifically that was happening for you at 7, though? Because that's a heck of a label to put on a kid.
Well, when I got into first grade, they put in these little reading circles. And I was in the regular reading circle at first, and I had difficulty. I just couldn't. I had these big book up there, Jane walked the dog kind of stuff, and it just didn't make any sense. I would swap words around. I pronounced things backwards. I didn't get any meaning out of it. I just couldn't do it, and I was frustrated. And so the teacher put me in a remedial class, and I still didn't get it. And there was a lot of kind of criticism at the time. She was an elderly lady and had high expectations and came from a different kind of thinking. And so in those days, this is 19, I guess 50, almost 60, 1959, 60, she put me in a dunce class, and you had to wear a dunce cap.
Literally?
Literally wore a dunce cap. And I remember we had Daryl, this other kid who had learning problems, and I used to sit and face the window, and we had to wear a dunce cap, which I now call a wizard's cap. It's turned into a wizard's cap now, but we had to sit out and face the window. We weren't allowed to talk to each other, but we'd have to face the window because we were not doing well in class. So she put me in first regular, then remedial, then dunce class. And finally after that, she asked my parents to come to the school. And we sat in a little reading circle. And I sat there, my mother, my father, and she spoke to me and said, "I'm afraid your son's not ever going to be able to read, write, or communicate, never amount to anything, never go over far in life." So that was just what it is. So I just assumed that it was accurate. I did have problems reading. It took me a long time to finally break through that. That was a major breakthrough to finally come back and learn how to read. I didn't do that till I was I was 18 when I really started learning how to read.
So in hindsight, why, now knowing what you know, why was it you weren't able to read at that age?
Well, I guess because of the dyslexia. Yeah. I just worked with a young boy yesterday who had dyslexia. And as I was interacting with him, I was recalling my own childhood. And if he sees something, he can get it. If he tries to read, he can't read. If he tries to verbalize it, he doesn't make sense out of it. And I was just sitting there remembering what it was like. And his strategy trying to get by was the same as mine. He had to ask people what they got out of it, the same thing. It was like talking to myself as a younger age. So yeah, sometimes what happens is you read it and you get so frustrated trying to figure things out, you just want to give up. You don't want to deal with it. And that compounds it, I think. So I had some challenges with that. I was great in school in the sense of sports. I was great in visual things. I was great in art, great in socializing and talking to people. And I could ask questions and ask them what they got out of things, and I could get information that way. But just sitting down and reading it, I just didn't have that. It didn't get any meaning out of it. It didn't make any sense. And I would swap words and make up things, and I would pronounce things, and the teacher would say, "That's not what the word, I'll read the word." And I just didn't seem to do well with it. And even to this day, verbally reading, I don't do as well as visual reading. And if you ask me to read something verbally, I sometimes put words in there that aren't there, and I say things sometimes crazy, and I make up words and stuff. And but now I've used it into my advantage because I've got Dr. Demartini's Dyslexionary, which is words that I make up that have meaning.
Well, speaking of words, how many books have you written now?
Well, if I put in all the research material and put in all of the manuals for programs, I've got over 250 books. If I put in all the research material, it's over 1,000. If I put in books that are out in the public market, about 40 something. And I got 5 more coming out this year. So I've done a lot of writing over the years now, but a lot of it was for manuals for seminars that I present. And so some of them are 300 pages, 400 pages, 600 pages. Some of them are big manuals, and they're parts of books. But so I've done a lot of writing. And I just recently found, I used to write a lot of my notes on index cards and fill up index cards because I could carry them around with me and I could read books and learn and write them down. And I just found 375,000 stored, and each one is a page of information. So if I added it up, that's a good 1,000 books right there. So I did a lot of, I was in writing. I used to work 18, 20 hours a day on just researching and writing, once I got into it. Once I learned I could, and once I went after it, I mean, I became, like a recluse. And just, I mean, when they say you can't read and you find you can, it's like, wow.
A whole new world opening up.
Yep.
And we will talk about your latest book as we move further into the program. Back to your personal journey. So obviously a great deal of studies that happened for you, and then your personal life. I believe you're married to Athena Starwoman.
Yeah, I definitely got involved in studying. I believe it's about 28,000, almost 600 books that I've been blessed to go through. And I've read everything I can get my hands on in every field, about 64 disciplines I think I've documented. And I just love studying and teaching, and so I teach every day. I mean, today was the 152nd speech this year, and here we are in just beginning of May. Yeah, yep. So I do a lot of speaking. But I was doing a program which I love doing called the Breakthrough Experience. This is my signature program. I've done it in over 52 countries. And it's my attempt to do what Paul Bragg did for me, to try to help other people find out what they want to dedicate their lives to and what they want to do with their life and how to go and live amazing lives and teach them the secret. And I was doing one in Walnut Creek, California, and Athena Starwoman, who was from New York, was told by a student in New York, because her father had just passed away, that you need to go to that program to help you with that issue. So Athena Starwoman was sort of an intuitive psychic, as you know, and so she flipped a coin and it said no, and she flipped it again, it said yes, and so she was trying to decide whether to go, and anyway, it said to go. So she goes there, and at the airport, as I was being picked up, the lady who picked me up picked her up ahead of time. And so the moment she came by, and they were coming to pick me up, the lights hit the front of the windshield, and I could see her. And the second I saw her, and the second she looked at me, we had a sense that there was something going on. And so then she got in the back seat, and I got in the front seat. I wanted to be in the back seat with her. And we drove to the seminar, and she had a seat right in the front row. The first seat was the only one available, so she had to sit right in the front row. And I noticed myself moving over towards her as I was speaking the whole time. I kept unconsciously getting closer over to her. So we had a lovely beginning in a relationship when we started. And we were together for 12 and a half years.
I was just going to ask, what year did you meet?
Well, I gotta say, whenever that was, I guess 91, 92, something 90, whenever it was. I don't remember the exact year. I'd have to go back and count the number of years.
Soulmates?
Well, I always say that whatever your disowned part is represents kind of the soulmate, and so we have complementary opposites. And in many cases, we had similarities, but we have definitely had differences. And when we first got together, she used to say, you know, you're up 20 hours a day, and I like to sleep 20 hours a day. We had common threads where we ate sushi together. We could always have something to do with sushi. But we had differences. She was very much into the social world, and I was more into the intellectual world. So we had differences and we had similarities. And I think the Greeks used to say, when you see more similarities and differences, you have infatuation. When you see more differences and similarities, you have resentment. When you have a perfect balance of similarities and differences, you have love.
Wow.
And I think we had that. We had an extraordinary relationship, and I feel graced and blessed to have spent time with her. I mean, she's an amazing lady. Now, we didn't see each other every day because we both had international lives. So we had rendezvous, and we would meet in locations. And we did a lot of telephone conversations, and then we would get together, and of course we had the opportunity to live in different parts of the world, and then we lived also on the ship called the World. And so we'd rendezvous, and we had an amazing life, and I'm very blessed to have that time together.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to go to another break, and we'll come back and hear more about Dr. John's life. Stay with us.